Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, What Colorful Worlds. Today I wanted to go over the June coloring recap of everything I've colored in this month. And I managed to get through 4 different books here. And within those, I managed to do 7 different spreads, including a few double page spreads, which is really rare for me. If you know anything about me, you'd know that I'm a very slow colorist. But this month, I was just so inspired. And part of the inspiration came from having a couple buddy colors. Part of the inspiration came from having some challenges. So I suggest you find some kind of community to color with, because it can really be motivational and really positive and supportive to help you get through more pages. So without further ado, let's go into the books and see what I've created. All right, so the first book I want to go into is in Mythic World. And this is actually the first page that I colored this month, and I completed it on the first of the month itself. And it is the Giant's Causeway from Kerby Rosanes Mythic Worlds, and it's from pages 6 to 7. So this one is interesting because I did it pretty much mostly with Derwent Inktense. So that's the blue of the sky, the green of the mountains, the sea, and then the stones. However, I didn't quite feel comfortable enough with my skills with Derwent Inktense to do the giants themselves and the clouds. And so that was done with Prismacolor pencils, as long as some Posca pens to white out some of the black lines of the clouds. And so the image I had here, the vision I had, was for these two giants to be fighting in broad daylight and have that nice juxtaposition of their wildness against a very beautiful, serene, calm setting. And it was also helpful to find reference photos to kind of see the different colors to use as well from real life. Yeah, so there you go, the Giant's Causeway. I have another page in here too, and it's this one. And this is the Trolls on page 46. And this one was done completely with Derwent Inktense. I really wanted to challenge myself to be able to do that. And I really enjoyed that. You can kind of see just like the brightness of the moon that you have here, and trying to get some of the reflections with a Posca pen, and even tried to get some of the reflections of the troll cliffs on the water. And that was also helped by making sure that the white Posca pen didn't go in there, so that the moon reflection would only really come on the areas that were not in shadow from having that backlighting. And just playing with lighting was really fun. Playing with all the different grays within the Derwent Inktense pencil set was really fun as well. And I just really enjoyed the process. It was super quick too. This one I finished on the 15th of June. And yeah, so really fun. Probably one of my favorite pages from this book and one of my favorite pages of this month. And those are the 2 spreads that I have from Mythic World. If we're counting number of pages, as in a double page as 2 different pages, I am now up to 3. Next book I want to look at is Alien Worlds. So this was a page colored for a Facebook group challenge, and it is the Lakes of Fire from one of the fiery kingdoms. Let's see which one it is. It is, I'm looking at the back. Yeah, Lakes of Fire from the Heavenly Infernal Planet, and is described as being pockmarked with lava spewing geysers, but perfect for monsters that have adapted to the hellish conditions. It is filled with the stench of sulfur and has a disintegrating moon hanging in the sky. So I wanted to bring in just the red of lava. I wanted to bring in just like purple rocks as well, because those are really nice contrasting colors. But also, if you look at photos of lava and magma, the rock itself has a purple sheen to it underneath the lava itself. So it happens in real life, and so I wanted to kind of mimic that here. And then when I was doing it, and this is all with Prismacolor pencils, by the way, I was so stuck on what color to make these little alien creatures. And so I looked at different color combos. Teal was maybe an option, gray and black were other options, but then I decided to just settle on this dark burgundy red, and I'm glad that I did, because cohesiveness was achieved with that choice, even though it's all kind of within the same color family, having like the red against the fire. But I'm still really happy with it. And because I had done Derwent Inktense I wanted to do Derwent Inktense as the background sky to bring in like a nice dark gray gradient, in part because you don't really have these colors in the Prismacolor set. Like you have the cool grays, and maybe I could have stuck with like the 90, 70 and ended with the 50%, but I just really love the way that the colors work here, and it also helps just give some really nice definition to my moon to make it look almost hollow and exploded from this corner over here. Yeah, and so there you go. We have the 2 pages from Alien Worlds done, and this brings me up to 5 separate pages or 3 separate spreads. All right, Rooms of Wonder was the one that I just completed and is the last one that I've done for this month. And it was a long time whip that I wanted to complete. It's the balloon windmill page. And so it's not my favorite, I'm going to be honest with you. It was mostly a struggle trying to fix different mistakes that I made along the way. So this page I had chosen because of Barbara Color had a wonderful tutorial with this sky, and I fell in love with this sky. And it was for a windmill in Worlds of Wonder, a different of Johanna Basford's books, and I thought windmill, Johanna Basford, I'll just transport that sky into this page instead. And so I did it halfway down because I wanted to create just a horizon line and then have something else at the bottom. But then when I got down to it, I wasn't sure what to put at the bottom. And I went through various stages of should I put green for grass, and then I ended up erasing it. And finally what I ended up doing was I actually took a photo of this page and I printed, let me see if I can find that for you. Here, I printed different versions of it. So this one here, I just used a marker to print green for the background. And this is what it looked like before when I was still deciding what to do. I was thinking of maybe having like a lake in the corner. And I ended up going for, sorry, I actually tore this page apart. Sorry, it's a bit ripped because I'd saved paper by ripping. And then one of the options was blue, and that helped me decide to just make this blue with water because it seems to fit more. For some reason, green as a color was just not working. It was getting too busy. And so I did blue there, and the windmill was red, but the windmill was based with a marker because I was experimenting with marker basing and then pencils on top. My problem is I chose a red that was a bit too dark. And so I wanted to make sure that I could light it out a bit. So I tried putting white pencils on top, and that just looked streaky, and then it blended it out, and then it became a bit more orange. So it was just all over the place as a page. But I do love the balloons, and I got this effect with Helen Ellingston's The Colorist Companion books. And I do love the sky, even though I struggled with it a tiny bit. It's way more streaky and rough than what Barbara Color has in her tutorial. My favorite element, I think, is actually my little hills here in the background. And I did those with the Polychromos indigo blue pencil. And I added in a tiny little gate here so that it would make sense why this windmill is here. It's not like floating in the water. It's actually at the edge of something, and you can see over the edge into this big lake with your horizon line in the background and then your sunset over there. So all in all, it worked out as a page. Not my favorite, but I managed to pull it together, and I'm happy with that, and I completed one of my long-standing whips. So the final book that I'm looking at here, I'm looking in on Worlds, Within Worlds, another Kerby spread. And so this one here was another challenge with a buddy color group that I have. We decided to all do the B page together. And I fell in love with the idea of having just like a cloudy sky. And this cloud idea I got from a video by Creative Paula, who did it for, I think, a Create This Book prompt, and I'll link that video up here. And so what I did was I actually slowed her video down, and I looked and saw what colored pencils she used, and I borrowed that color combination to make this sky. So I wanted to give her some credit there because I believe in giving artists the credit that they're due. And to get the sky this nice even tone of blue, I used Gamsol, which is a odorless mineral spirit, and I just used that to melt the pencils, and I did another layer on top of that to help even it out. And I even used a tiny bit of metallic watercolor on the wings, and that's why you have like this color shimmer, and it kind of goes between pearl to pink, and I think that's really cool. So here you go, the pirate bees we have with Worlds Within Worlds, and that brings my coloring count up to 7, I think. And then here are the final two, 8 and 9. So this is another challenge with a different buddy color friend group. We all decided to do the ant house page together, and I wanted to experiment with gouache for this one, and with gouache also experiment with masking fluid. So there is a art form called batik, and batik is when you take wax and you put it on a cloth before you put it in a vat of dye, and then when you take it out, you put wax on top of a new dyed area, and then you re-dye it a darker color. So you're basically going from white to a lighter shade of color to a darker shade of color, all the way up to black, and each layer in between you add wax so that that waxed area doesn't take on new color. And it's called batik. It's really cool. And so I thought I could achieve that same effect here by using masking fluid in paint. So all the white dots, I just put masking fluid down and then did a layer of a super pale yellow, and it just went all over. And then I did bigger dots on top of that, and then went over with a darker shade of green, and then dots on top of that, and then went over finally with this darkest shade of green. And then once I was done, I had this like mess of masking fluid that I carefully peeled away, and because I did that all within one day, it didn't have too long to set and ruin the paper, and nothing tore, so I was really happy about that. It's also new masking fluid, and so I suggest if you have issues with masking fluid sticking, maybe get a new small bottle so that you can make it go faster, because any old masking fluid tends to become really difficult to work with. And so, yeah, so then I created the rest of the houses with a marker base and colored pencil on top. And that's, again, part of why I was able to color so many so quickly, was because I was using this mixed media to help me achieve my desired results. And what's kind of funny about this house was it was originally a dark brown, kind of similar to this bark here. But because it just stood out too much as an accent house compared to everything else, I took my ivory colored Posca pen, just went over the whole thing, and then went over that with some colored pencils to help bring the colors back in line with the rest of the houses. And if you look closely, it's a hot mess. If you look from a distance, it merges in with the piece, and that kind of makes me happy. So now I have this nice luminous green forest scene. And the final page, bringing me up to like the 10th physical page and my 7th drawing, or 7th coloring scene, is this crab over here. And I did this as a color palette challenge, and I automatically wanted to do it on this. It was like a summer themed color palette challenge. And so I've seen a couple examples of crabs being done, the eyelid crabs. Sometimes he's sitting on like the sandy beach, and sometimes he's floating like I did here. And initially I wanted to have him be completely submerged underwater, but I wasn't sure how I could achieve that effect with it being communicated clearly. Like, I didn't want it to look like I just had this random blue crab. I wanted him to look actually like he's underwater, but then have, like, you know, underwater the sand has really beautiful light shadows or light shinies on it from the water being refracted in if it's shallow enough. But I didn't have the skills to be able to do that, and then I decided last minute to back out and just make him a floating island instead. I also didn't want to have too many layers, right? Because then you have like your layer of sand, and then your layer of water, and then your layer of sky, and that sounded like it was a bit complicated. I'm not as comfortable drawing in backgrounds, even though that's been a lot of what I've been practicing for this month. So the base here was done with watercolor, actually. My watercolor mix of Daniel Smith and Winsor Newton, like the Cotman one, not the professional. And so I just went with multiple colors back and forth, avoiding actually his legs for the first few rounds. with some masking fluid, and then on top of that went in with coloring pencils to even it out, and then on top of that I used Gamsol to liquidate that, and on top of that I added a few more coloring pencil details, and finally ended with my Posca pen wavy highlights. This crab itself was based with like watercolor markers, so not alcohol markers but just regular markers. I did it with that pale yellow and then added orange on top. And same here, this is actually all done with markers except for the rocks, which are done with my Prismacolor pencils, and this sky was actually done with my Prismacolor pencils, going from I think China Blue to True Blue, Cerulean, and Sky Blue Light. Yeah, and there you go. So 10 physical pages done, 7 spreads done, and that is the last one to show you for this month. It's been super wonderful and super productive, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next month, goodbye.